Well, good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all. It is a beautiful Monday. Again, beautiful month of January happening out there for us. And this is the second meeting of the 143rd Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. I don't think that's correct, but we'll find out if it is. We're into that next year. And any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, we'll go to minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. You are correct. This is not the second meeting. We'll make that amendment in the minutes for sure. At this time, I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on January the 9th, 2023 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Peters. Thank you.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next order of business are deputations. We have one deputation this evening. CJ Allen, Chairperson of the Good Vibes Community Association, is in attendance to discuss the special events permitting process.
CJ, please come on up to the microphone and you go ahead and start when you're ready. We're going to give you about 10 minutes to do this, as much as flexible as we can. If you'd like questions of you from the council, try and give them some of that time, or we'll have to have you back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, members of council, directors and managers of departments, thank you in advance for your attention for what I hope will be the first of many encouraging conversations between council and Good Vibes Community Association, or GVCA for short. Many of you I know, but for those who I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with formally, my name is CJ Allen. I'm the chairperson of the GVCA Board of Governors. There are several members of our board in the gallery, Mrs. Nace and Ms. Keeney, with me this evening in support of my speaking to our deputation. This evening, I'd like to specifically present our experience with the special event permit process, not the committee itself, but to the process pre and post committee approval and the complexities that exist in a system that some might suggest are intimidating or somewhat dysfunctional. I'd also like to speak to council's current strategic plan with emphasis on item number 1 of vibrant community and the subject of busking in the city of St. Thomas. First, though, I want to emphasize that our findings are not a reflection of any individual staff member, but rather the current system they're working with. As a nonprofit volunteer association, preparing for our first large-scale event, that being the Summer Harvest Festival in September 2022, the special event permit process was one that we took very seriously. From our application to our letter requesting municipally significant event status, our administration and finance chair, Mrs. Jennifer Nace, was meticulous in ensuring our presentations and documentation were unquestionable and faultless. I'd received calls from Mrs. Nace late into the evening if there was an I without a dot or a T without a cross. Our meeting for special event committee approval and the issuing of our special event permit were milestones that we'd held our breath and pulled our hair out over for months. And I recall the moment that we received our approval for our application. I turned off my webcam and muted my mic, and Mrs. Nace and I yelled in celebration. It was a great moment and one that meant a lot to us. In the months that followed, though, while we anticipated our own potential missteps and feared that there was something that we had missed, we were instead faced with roadblocks within the process of fulfilling our programming rather than any of the bureaucracy we'd completed. And we learned that this was because, to be blunt and eloquent, there were too many cooks in the kitchen. Some of the issues we faced were some calendar confusion about the rental rates, insurance, the Ben Shell electricity and electrical box, and conflicting messages regarding live performances downtown on city property and some of the downtown businesses. Members of council are largely already aware of the details of these issues, so rather than beat a dead horse, so to speak, or lay faults at the feet of specific stakeholders, I use these matters to encourage council to direct staff to review the special event system in place so that one individual is solely the intermediary or liaison between the community wanting to organize events and City Hall in order to eliminate redundancies, conflicting policies, or perceived last-minute obstacles that have the potential to send an event into tailspin. This is a matter that I hope council will take a particular interest in advance of the spring and summer when the event calendar will begin to fill up. I do, once more, emphasize that this is not a staff issue. The GVCA thanks all departments for their support and cooperation in helping us to make Summer Harvest Festival, now just to be called Harvest Festival, a huge success for GVCA and the community. We continue to receive compliments from residents and the community. In fact, Councilor McCauley, just this past Friday, forwarded a message to me from someone from outside of our borders who expressed that she wished she lived in St. Thomas so that she could be part of our community because of Harvest Festival. So what can council do? GVCA would like to ask and recommend to council that in order to facilitate and check the box, so to speak, on item number 1 under Vibrant Community, the existing strategic plan, the council permit recognized, vetted, and incorporated local community associations and organizations who meet a specific yet to be determined criteria to make use of city-owned spaces free of charge. And likewise, the costs incurred by these organizations, such as the allowance for power at the Pinafore Park Band Shell, be either reimbursed to the organization or that the city engage in an electrical contract to alleviate the burden of these expenses. Further, that the electrical box at Pinafore Park Band Shell, which in our experience is privately owned, be bought by the city and that it also be complementary for local groups. The city's contribution does not need to be solely transactional, with an amount of money going from one bank account to another. But infrastructure costs would be a big help to the bottom line. I know other organizations in the city who haven't been able to raise the sponsorship capital in the way that the GVCA did for Harvest Festival would be empowered to make use of city facilities with incentives that encourage the facilities use. And removing profits from rentals, yes, they would be intrusive to the monies that are added to a department's budget, but I'll leave it to council and staff to weigh the pros and cons and just say GVCA and its full calendar of events for this year will greatly appreciate the consideration and a response to the recommendation. On September 23rd, 2022, on the first day of the Summer Harvest Festival, GVCA was happy to partner with downtown business and property owners and city transit to bring buskers, street performers to the downtown and onto the bus route from the hub to Elgin Center. These buskers were paid by the businesses for their performances. And as I understand, the program was very well received. GVCA would like to continue busker programming beginning this spring and would request from council the ability to issue licenses or permits or whatever the language might be at no cost to performers. Currently, as I understand it, a performer would need to go through the special event permit process in order to bus downtown or in the city. We see this as an obstacle for both the busker and an unnecessary task for the Special Events Committee. This, in a small way, will also add to the downtown while construction is happening. Granted, there may be competing noise, but musicians and performers work in busy bars and restaurants and venues on a regular basis, so they will be able to adapt. There is also a strong economic development tie-in here as well. The allowance for GVCA to provide the opportunity for street performance is the beginning of a much larger conversation about a dedicated arts and culture plan for St. Thomas. One that will be fundamentally important as larger corporate business like the Amazon fulfillment plant bring new, culturally affluent audience who may be the future patrons of the art gallery, Princess Avenue Playhouse, our museums, and GVCA's new live performance music space at 571 Talbot Street. GVCA would like to begin programming and promoting a Buskers Welcome initiative in St. Thomas in advance of the warm weather. We are willing to move on this and any other city partnership projects within our association's mandate to advocate for arts, culture, history, heritage, and the wellness of our community. We'll be opening the GVCA to public membership by spring. All of our thoughts, recommendations, and requests are respectfully submitted. On behalf of GVCA, our Board of Governors, and myself, I thank Council for your attention. And through you, Your Worship, I'm happy to answer any questions.
CJ, thank you for sharing with us. And I'll take a quick round of questions from council, if there is any. And if not, I can share with you, I know we are already, and Councillor Clark is the chair of our Special Events Committee, but we're already redoing that manual. We would love your input, right? So.
And we'd be happy to provide it.
Councillor Peters?
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thanks, CJ, for the presentation tonight. I don't think we're going to be able to address everything tonight. I think we're going to have to hear back from staff on some of these things, but the one that strikes me particularly is the electrical issue at Pinafore Park. And I'm going to raise this now because I've raised it with Jeff Bray, but to say it publicly, we're in the process of building a new park downtown that has the potential to be a great event space venue. And I'd rather see us put the infrastructure in advance and let's do it right off the bat, right out behind us, so that we can use that facility. But the flip side of that too is to Pinafore that, you know, here we have the Jones band shell that obviously isn't meeting the needs of the organization that just used it. And I'm curious to know, are there others like the Music in the Park program that have encountered the same things? So that's a multi-use and multi-event venue. And that's one I'd like to see us move as quickly as we can on is let's, what would it take to ensure that the upgrades are in place out there? But I look forward to hearing staff about some of these other issues about waiving user fees, street performers, and the development of the arts and the culture plan. Thanks.
Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank the organization for all the hard work that they've done. It's a new organization and they've taken the lead in an area that quite frankly, you know, we've been talking about for a while and we haven't got off the ground in some ways. It's in our strategic plan and partnerships are what we're all about. We can't do it alone. Other organizations can't work alone. So it's great that we have a new organization like this. And I look forward to, I'll call you and we'll set up a time to meet again. We've met in the past and we'll keep talking.
Look forward to that. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Having been the chair of that committee for 4 years from 2014 to 18, certainly you're preaching to the choir to us in a sense of we know internally that it's a I'll use the word clumsy at times and as we learn through 4 years, it's sometimes hard to keep track of when you say to a group, you have to do a certain thing. Well, who's going to check up on that? And that kind of thing, it gets to be very important when you get to public health inspections and all those kind of things. So please know that this is something that we care about and something we thought about, and we certainly look forward to your input on this. Thank you, Your Worship.
CJ, if I can finish up, you and I have had the discussion how we think we have the best venue for public events in our community in Pinafore Park and others. And I love what Councillor Peters just brought up. We're building a new park. Let's build it with the thought that we're going to use it at the end of the day and make sure it works. When we find areas that aren't quite functioning the way they need to, please let us know. We are the servants of the people. And in order to use a great park like Pinafore Park, we may need to be told once in a while, hey, how about this? How about this? I also know you've had a few discussions about the use of Pinafore, whether it's Festival of Lights and other things too. And we'd love to hear your input on that too. So I think a number of us are going to be back to you. And as Councillor Peters said, we're going to have some questions of staff too. And please let them reach out to you too and share with us what we can. We can only make it better if we all go at it.
We would be happy to contribute in any way we can. Thank
Okay.
you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, CJ, you're welcome to stay and watch us tonight. It's it can be quite fun. No, I'm just, but you're also you're allowed to leave if you feel like it too. So please. All right, thanks.
Next item, council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First committee this evening is strategic direction and development. First item relates to community improvement program for the property at 51 Malakoff Street. Request for residential tax increment and planning and building fees grant. I have a motion that report PD 0123 relating to the residential tax increment and planning and building fees grant request for 51 Malakoff Street be received for information. And further, the council direct that a bylaw be prepared to enter into a community improvement program grant acknowledgement agreement with JC Real Estate Company Incorporated relating to CIP application 2022-119. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Herbert. Next item is notice of a public meeting to take place on January the 18th at 10:30 a.m. Through Microsoft Teams relating to site plan control. This is to consider a proposal for a pylon sign at June Rose Colwood School at 84 Edward Street. Next, two items are notices of a public meeting to take place by Zoom on January the 26th, 2023. This relates to applications before the Committee of Adjustment. The first one is for a minor variance to permit a two-story addition, 8.6 meters from the rear lot line, whereas the minimum permitted is 9, and an uncovered deck and stairs, 4.7 meters from the rear lot line, whereas the minimum permitted is 6.5, and that's at 10 Drake Street. And the second relates to an application for a minor variance by the Elgin Theatre Guild at 40 Princess Avenue to permit the construction of a barrier-free access ramp on the west side of the existing building. Your Worship, unless there are any further items for this committee, we'll now move into community engagement and services. First item relates to Canada Goose Management Program update. I have a report. Motion that report PRO 623 relating to the Canada Goose Management Program update be received for information. And further, the council authorize the continuation of the Goose Management Program for an additional 3 years in accordance with the Ministry of the Environment's Migratory Bird Damage or Danger Permit. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Macaulay. No further items for this committee unless there are any items from the members.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask, I'd like to just mention about the solar lighting project that's gone on, the pilot project along the LMPS tracks heading north from Elm Street up past Memorial Arena. And I'm hoping that whether it's tonight or whether it's some night in the future, that we could get an update on that from Mr. Bray about what their experience is, their recommendations. As I noted, when I've talked to Mr. Bray, it's, we've gotten through the darkest part of the year, like December 21st has come and gone. If there's going to be a failure, you'd think it would be around then. So if he could speak to that now or sometime in the future, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Preston. You're right. This was a trial. We were very curious ourselves to see how the lights would perform, especially with the shorter days, more overcast weather. And we did find that just before Christmas, the lights weren't still on in the morning, in the early morning. So Adrian has been in touch with the installer. What the way they were set before was to turn on at dusk, go 100% for 5 hours. And then after 5 hours, they'd step down to 25% motion activated. So we flipped that around last week. We've gone to 25% power, and if it's motion activated, up to 100%. We're also looking at getting a bigger size battery. Within our budget at the time, that's what we could afford. The installer has told us that they're looking at getting bigger batteries. So if they're available, we're going to budget for their installation as well.
Great.
And just follow up.
Please go ahead.
And Mr. Bray, you and I, we were talking about this, about the idea of timers on them. And can you share with council what you're telling me about the power usage on the timers and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I misinformed you. I apologize. I thought these had timers. These are all motion activated. So they do have the dusk to dawn, the light sensor, but there's no timers on this particular model.
One last one. Thank you. So that if we were to, so we can't retrofit those with the timers, but we could certainly, when we do a next round of perhaps moving further north along the track, we could do those.
Yeah. I'd be interested in seeing personally how this works with it switching out to 25%, motion activated up to 100%, and then getting a bit bigger battery. I'm hopeful that will solve the situation. We are going with solar powered lights at Orchard Park and Shaw Valley, and that'll have a bit bigger battery on these models. So we shouldn't have an issue there either.
Great. Good to hear that we're working.
Yeah.
That what we got is okay, but let's
Yep.
see what else we can do.
And if it doesn't work, we can look into the timers. Certainly, that's not an issue. Thank you.
Other items under this committee? Seeing none?
We'll now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item relates to solar installation at the Joe Thornton Community Center. I have a motion that report ES 0423 relating to solar installation at the Joe Thornton Community Center be received for information, and further that council endorse the 614 kilowatt DC 500 kilowatt AC potential solar installation project on the roof of the Joe Thornton Community Center, and further that ZON Engineering Incorporated be authorized to carry out engineering and construction administrative services in the amount of $49,250 excluding HST in accordance with the city's purchasing policy. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions, Councillor Clark?
Well, I'm elated to see this report. I think it's been the full 8 years that I've been council. I've been lobbying, I guess, Wendell to do some investigation on, and I'm glad to hear that the arena roof is sound and we can do the project. It not only reduces our carbon footprint, but it also takes you know, a neutral thing like a roof and creates a revenue stream. And as we know, cities are limited in ways that they can generate revenue, and so this is something that's, I think, is exciting in several different fronts. That being said, I would recommend that we do the smaller project, and that way we're maximizing the grant that the province is paying and we're minimizing our costs. And technology is changing so much that since we can scale this up, I think it only makes sense that we start out with the recommendation and see how the project works, and see if there is any technological changes where you know, we haven't then got behind the 8 ball, we're able to stay current. So I think this is just great news.
Thank you. Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Councillor Clark for his comments. I too am very glad to see that this report is here and fully support the initiatives going forward. You are correct about the solar panel technology and how fast it's moving to make the improvements, how much lighter they're becoming and how much more efficient they are becoming. And the output and the costs of the units themselves have been coming down drastically. And I agree that there is the potential for savings, not just for the USET, the Joe Thornton Arena, but also as a revenue producer. It has that potential. And there are so many other ways. And I would like to hear any further comments, if I could, from our Mr. Lawrence, if that's possible, please.
Okay. Anything to jump in on, Justin, or should I go for more comments and you cover it at the end?
That sounds
Sure.
good, yeah.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. A couple questions that perhaps Justin can address. I'd be curious to know what some of the other sites that you looked at. You talk in the report of looking at other city facilities. The one that comes to mind for me is not so much a facility, but a brownfield site that probably will never get redeveloped. And that's the old Northside Arena property. It sits there with an 8-foot fence around it, doing nothing. And if we're not going to spend the money to clean it up, is there a way that we can turn it into a revenue generator? So Northside Arena property, and what other city buildings?
Lots of questions asked, and we've got the right man for the job. Mr. Lawrence.
In terms of sites, what you want to look at is generally a newer roof, as new as possible. They're a little bit better than ground mounted, because when you do ground mounted, you can't use that land in the future. However, like I know that we have no current plan for Joanne Brooks, but we could. So we would rule out a potential rehab for that in theory. So the ideal location is large, flat, modern roofs, if you have them. This was by far the number one location we have. We have a lot of smaller roofs really in our city assets. So this is the number one, but you can do a smaller installation and still get roughly the same economics as this. It just takes a bit more organizing to set each project up. When this project came in and we saw the rate of return, we were very happy, because normally solar projects could be break even. In the past, they were losers financially, and you would do it because you wanted to gain the environmental benefits. But this project is actually a financial good return on investment. It's amazing that that we can get such a great return, like 7.5% rate of return, 13-year payback period is fantastic. So it's a really positive one. And but I do also though agree with Councillor Clark in that do the green option now, the smaller option, and consider that middle part of the roof later. And maybe the solar panels are even cheaper, even more efficient at that point. It can be phased. So take this first phase as a success and look at our other roofs and go from there.
Okay. Councillor Clark.
A supplemental, we've got a new animal shelter being built, and have we taken a look at those plans and front loaded the idea of green technology these kind of panels being one of those ideas.
Lawrence?
Yes, we have two green initiatives that I think will be contingent on budget. So the first is geothermal heating is what we'd like to do. So there's a lot of land there. We can make a geothermal system for heating and cooling. And the second is that the roof was designed and oriented so that it's south facing at a good angle. So it's ideally set up to hold solar panels without racking. And then the conduit, of course, is down into the panel area. I think though it'll come down to budget, like can we afford to add the panels now with the budget that we've allotted, or will it be in excess? And then that would be a council's choice about that component.
Great to hear. Other questions? Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. I'm kind of on the same, even Justin, I'm kind of on the same line as Councillor Clark when we're looking at new buildings. Is this something that would be looked at, solar, or do we have to wait till we do this project to see how well it works, or are the plans for any new buildings solar? Because I think it's the way to go, but I don't know 100% about it, but I think it's good. But I'm just curious, are you looking at other buildings when they're being built from the ground up?
I think it's a great objective for council and for staff at every new building that we build to at least configure the roof so it could have solar, whether you build that right away as part of the building or whether you make it so it's upgradable in the future. It's a good point and it's a great objective to have. We should definitely set our buildings up so they can have solar.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion we're voting on then is for what? The recommendation for the, as Councillor Clark has said? Yes? Okay, then all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to water meter reading. I have a motion that report ES 0523 related to water meter reading be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters?
Well, I'm certainly supportive of this. I've never had so many complaints about water bills as I've seen in the past month and a half because of labor issues relating to meter reading. So the sooner that we can, I see it's going to take 3 to 5 years for implementation, but there's a lot of people experiencing some real hardship because they've suddenly had their meters read and their bills are through the roof.
Councillor McCauley?
I agree. And it will be good to see a project for the future, but I just wanted to give some context to what Councillor Peters was saying in, one resident that I spoke to, their bill is usually $280 to $300. And this month it was $700 and $550 in water. Another resident, typically $200 bill was $500, water was $300. Another resident, a $900 bill, $747 in water. So I guess my question is, how can we, knowing that this is 3 to 5 years out, what can we do to partner with Integris to A, do a better job of letting residents know that this is coming down the pipes? And B, how can we help residents through communication understand what the steps are? Because I understand that you can call Integris and these are interest-free payments. So what can we do as a city to kind of get that word out there? And this may not be your question, Justin, but in general, I think we could, again, it's Integris that's having the challenge, but it's greatly impacting our residents.
Great. Councillor Kohler?
So just kind of piggybacking on that, I was going to be asking what Integris is doing. I know it's a third-party meter reader that is doing this, but what is Integris doing to make sure that this company does their best to make sure that they're going out there? I know they have a contract and they have to work within that, but again, if it is red, please make sure that on the bill itself, it says it's estimated so people know that they can see that coming down the pipe, because especially like the numbers that Councillor McCauley reads off there show up right before Christmas or right after Christmas, probably the worst time for anybody for that to happen. So the heads up that they're talking about, but what is Integris doing to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Mr. Lawrence, can you share with your discussions on the issue and how we can move better today towards a project that may take a long time to do?
Absolutely. To start, I'll say that like we accept responsibility. We're the ultimate provider of service for it. Even though we contract through Integris and Integris hires a third party, it's the city that's responsible for that service and for that billing. So, we take responsibility. Integris is an excellent partner. And we've been talking already. In the end, people pay the amount of water or sewer that they have used, but what can happen when you have bad reads or late reads is that the order of when you pay gets messed up. So you might pay a little bit more upfront and then less later, or the reverse. Either way, customers aren't very happy with it, right? They'd rather pay on a more consistent basis. So what we're doing is we're working with the Integris and the third party provider to, first of all, get as many reads as possible. So the more reads you get, the better. Secondly, we're working on making better estimates. So when there's not a read, we need to make a better estimate. And then thirdly, we're working on dealing with any customers that have some kind of irregularity in their bill. So we're working on that. And I agree that if we're looking towards a new solution, we should move towards a new solution as quick as possible. 3 to 5 years is conservative. But there is a significant amount of work. We do need to replace every meter in the city to do so. It would be essentially like Hydro One operates, where they have, when they did that about 5 years ago, right? They have automated meters all around the province, essentially, right? And in St. Thomas as well. So yeah, we take responsibility, but we do have a strategy to make it a bit better in the short term.
Councillor Herbert, then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Worship. So Justin, when someone has, and obviously we've all heard from, we had a few friends have had $400 or $500 more in their bill. Are they required to pay that right up front? And then do you reimburse it later on? Or do you just tell them, we'll check it out before you have to pay? Because when you have to pay $400 or $500 a month for your water bill right away, that's pretty expensive for people. So is there any way when they contact you, do you say, we know there's a problem, so we're just going to go back to your normal monthly rates that you've paid, we'll pay that, and then we'll investigate? Or do they have to pay it? I guess that's my bottom line question.
Mr. Lawrence?
In general, we have to recognize that the vast majority of the bills have occurred at the proper amounts. And so, 99% of them are exactly like they should have been. So obviously everyone should be paying those. If there's slight ups and downs, then yes, the best method is to continue paying them. In the end, I guess it's like your federal income taxes. You're going to either get a credit or some money back, right? It does work itself out in the end to exactly the amount that you've used. So that's the preferred method if people pay them. We do also have though the catastrophic water loss program that council supported. In the case that someone has a large, a leak and there's let's say $1,000 bill or something, that is possible. And if there's any questions, I would say the best, with a bill, the best way is for them to contact Integris, and we'll work through whatever those questions are and their specific issues are.
Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Worship. The person that called me, their bill hadn't been read in 11 months. So they said Integris has been good to work with. They've applied for the catastrophic grant because their bill is $2,800. And so they're getting the 500, but again, they're working with Integris. Integris has been helpful. They understand they have to pay the bill. But I think Councillor McCauley is onto something, is that we're receiving all these calls and people need to know, this person took it upon themselves. They did the customer service requests through Integris, and they've been talking with Integris, and they're working out a long plan. It's going to take them a couple of years, 2 or 3 years probably, to pay it. So I think we need to maybe through your office is put out a blanket communications thing, kind of explaining because it's not going to end. They're not going to recruit these guys and gals that they need to do the job overnight. And so, for example, my bill hadn't been read for the 3 months, so I got my big one in October. Well, now it's January and people are, the cycle's continuing. Just it's random when, if you don't get your bill read monthly, who knows when you're going to get, when your gap's going to occur. So I think if we could be a little more proactive and let people know there is acknowledge the issue. And if they get that type of bill, who to call and what the steps are. Otherwise, we're going to continue to get calls and then we're going to call you and it's going to continue for another 6 months. And if it's going to take us 5 years to solve it, we're going to get a lot of phone calls.
Mr. Lawrence, I agree with Councillor Clark. I mean, I recognize it's our water, it's our bills, and so we can take responsibility, but Integris is responsible for helping us get the bills properly to people. And as Councillor Clark just said, what is their customer service like when someone calls for that? Or is it, because we seem to be getting a lot of calls with this group, and so I'm suggesting perhaps we're not getting the types of calls we might want from the other group or to Integris for them to come up with it. But I wanted I was just going to ask a question out loud. There's nobody here who's been overcharged for water. It's the billing cycle that's being disrupted. Well, these are water usages because when they're finally read, then that's what the bill is, right? Am I correct? Or other than the catastrophic leak that we have a couple of years with, this is really people who have just not had their meters read, and so it's been estimated low, and then a very large bill comes in. Councillor Clark, you mentioned your own. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, the estimate's too low. And it's too low month on end, and
Right.
then it finally catches up with you.
To ask one more question, I'm sorry, I involved Councillor Clark in here too, is there, I mean, law of averages are there's just as many people getting bills that are too low after that reading finally takes place. Is that correct?
Your line of questioning is correct. Your statement is correct that in the end, it works out exactly to the amount.
You're going to pay
that
for
you've
your
used.
water.
You paid for exactly as many cubic meters as you've used. However, the suggestion from Councillor Clark is fine, and we can do that. So Integris is providing this service for us. We can work with them to make some communication that goes out with, for example, the next bill to suggest that we've been working through this. We take responsibility. We're working through it. Here's the next steps you can do if you have a concern with your meter read.
Councillor Peters?
Your worship, I can remember when, before I had the little button thing that they plug into and they can read my water in my house. When I wasn't home, I used to get a little card at the door. And it
You
had
had to
little
draw the
round
lines?
circles all on it. You had to
Yeah.
go down and read your water meter and tick off how much water you've used. Do we not do that anymore? So that if somebody goes to a house, they can't get in, are we not leaving anything at the door saying, hey, we need to read your water? Like, I think you could either mail it or you could call it in.
Mr. Lawrence?
I'm not aware if we still allow self-reads. I don't think we do. There's not very many left anymore that we have to actually go in someone's basement. They're almost all like your system is now, where there's the external reader. And so there's a really, really small subset left. I can't think of any why we wouldn't have done them. We've been working on those for years, right? Decade, pretty much, to get rid of all those last ones. But it's an interesting point and something we can ask Integris about. Is it possible to insert self-reads into the whole equation? I'm not sure about that.
Councillor Gibson?
Just to elaborate with Councillor Peters, yes, I do recall having to do that myself a few times in my lifetime. And, the public must understand they're onto this line where being read electronically is losing jobs. But they must remember back in the day, we used to have to go down the basement and read it and send it in or call it in. So it's not about losing jobs. It's just unfortunately, we don't have the workforce out there. So I'm glad to hear about the changes that were going to be coming up, but it's not about jobs. It's about getting that reading correctly. So you're not feeling like you're doing an overload of payout each month. Thank you.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. When I was on the Integris board, Justin, there was a pilot project done of 50 houses where you could read the meters from Integris office. You didn't have to send anybody around there to read the meter. It was done remote or in the office. Whatever happened to that project? Do you know?
Yeah, so
what?
that's the report that's referenced. It was in 2015. And
Right.
at the time, they looked at two technologies. It was AMI and AMR were the two. One was a system that automatically sends the reads right back to the central office. And the second one was like a half system where it would send it back part way and then get repeated on and get sent on. When we looked at that, it was the return on investment was really poor. And at that time, the reads were going well. And so Integris staff recommended not doing anything at that time, and council agreed to not do anything. But time has passed, and the labor issue is here, and maybe there's better technology. And so I think it's time to have a look at it again.
City Manager, did you have a comment?
Just a very quick one, Your Worship, through you as the members of council. This has certainly been something that we've been working with Integris, Mr. Lawrence and his team, but I also had a discussion with Integris on Friday as well about this, so to get some more information. So they're very much supportive of this. They're very much trying to ensure that the media reading is happening, but they're also supportive of another way of doing it. So I just wanted to share that with members of council as well.
Okay. Further questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, unless the members have any other business under infrastructure, we'll now move into corporate governance and administration. The first item relates to delegations and provincial advocacy plan for the 2023 Roma Conference. I have a motion that report ADM 22 relating to the delegations and provincial advocacy plan for the 2023 Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference be received for information. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Macaulay.
Questions or comments? Councillor Baldwin Sands?
Thank you. It is my hope when the delegation is at the Roma conference that they take the opportunity or take some time to corner probably the Minister of Health in regards to the doctor shortage that we have across the province, not just here, but across the province. But we do have a very strong shortage of doctors, and also the increase of nurse practitioners in the province as well. So if those two items can be addressed, and hopefully the delegation will be able to, whether it's from the pit or whether it's from an opportunity in a hallway, to start making our feelings known about the doctor shortage that is critical throughout this province. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin Sands. Go ahead.
Thanks, Worship. The other thing I would encourage you to remind them of is that how many of the items on this list are not historically municipal responsibility,
Right.
and that these historically have been the responsibility of the province that have indirectly been downloaded to us.
Correct on both. You know, my position on the different levels of responsibility across Councillor Baldwin Sands, some of these things are direct delegations to ministers or parliamentary assistants, and others are caught you in the hallway. So you've given me two for caught you in the hallway, and we'll carry on with that too. It's not just the formal delegations. We'll certainly run into other ministers and stuff we have questions about. So by all means, fill Councillor Clark's ears so that he can do most of this work for me while we're there. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to auditing services. I have a motion that report TR 0223 relating to auditing services be received for information, and further the council authorize the extension of the current auditing services agreement with the firm of Scrimger and Company for an additional 2 years. Moved by Counselor Wookey, seconded by Counselor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Unless there are any further items from the members for corporate governance and administration. Council will now convene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole as recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Counselor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Counselor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No reports of committees this evening. We now move into petitions and communications. First item is a copy of a resolution addressed to Premier Doug Ford from the City of Kingston regarding the inclusion of administrative penalties in the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act 2016. Second item is a letter received from Dan Vernack, Port Stanley Terminal Rail regarding LNPS railway reconnection.
Councillor Peters on that one.
Worship, I'd appreciate if we could give them the most detailed answer that we could to this. It's sort of coincidental that we've got a public meeting coming up tonight that is regarding the former Elgin Handles property that's right adjacent to this site. And I see Bob Weir up in the gallery, who I'm sure is here for the public meeting. And, you know, Bob sent me some interesting information regarding the ability to lay this very track back down that PSTR is asking in this. And, you know, this was supposed to be a 150th anniversary. I think someone sitting in the mayor's chair was the MP that acquired the funding for
Make
this
most of this happen.
for the 150th anniversary of Canada. So it would be nice to, as we embark on the planning of the new Barwick Street Bridge, CN, who seems to have largely abandoned anything as far as buildings are concerned at the yards at the end of Station Street and Hiawatha Street. I don't see any activity there now. We need to put some pressure on CN and get this track relayed, ensure that the new development that's going to take place is going to be compatible with the rail. And let's just get some of these, but I'm hoping that someone, yourself and some staff perhaps, could put a detailed response back to PSTR, because I know they would do what they could do to help out as well.
I'll take that and say yes. And I will tell you the amount of pressure that many of our departments and myself and the city managers put on CN to try and complete some of these pieces, but we inherited some of them to this council, but many of them go back, even as you say, to my time as the member of parliament and your time as the, you know, we've worked forever to try and get CN to see the light. And we're not winning that battle as much as I'd like it to have happened. Next item.
Next item is a letter received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding new initiatives in the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022. Final item under petitions is notice from the County of Elgin of the appointment of Councillor Todd Noble to the Greenland Community Trust Committee. Your worship, unless there are any items of petition or communication from the members, we'll move into unfinished business of council.
I have an item, and I think we should discuss it. Is before Christmas, we had a delegation from some of the downtown merchants, and Hillary Vaughn was here with it. And I kind of know a little bit about what we're doing, but I've been talking a lot to whether it's the Downtown Development Board or that group or other businesses, but we haven't reported back to the general public as to where we're at. I'd like to ask the city manager if she just give us a pretty quick update on it.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, through you, the members of council. Since the delegation was provided that evening, we have had a couple of discussions with Ms. Vaughn and others who are part of the group. I've also participated in some information gathering that group's been doing around trying to understand the challenges of the downtown core. We also, in interest of creating the group or the working group that they wanted to establish, we did develop some broad terms of reference for that group, and we shared it with the working group as well. So they had a sense about what we thought they were asking for and seeing if that would work with them. Subsequent to that, they have received them. They were thankful to receive them, but they have not asked us to instigate the development of the group at this point in time. I've spoken to them a number of times. I've been part of discussions with them as recently as last week again. I don't have any further update for you in regard to that. There are some people in the community who've asked to be part of that group. And they've reached out to us in that regard. And at this point in time, we don't have a timeline for the creation of that group. We're really looking for some feedback from that full group who came to make the delegation to help us move forward.
Thank you very much. And I know there's a number of things that this council and the city has done since that presentation, whether it's the increase of the new police special constables, the special police office downtown, the new trash pickup hours and times. We've been looking at many of the things that were mentioned to us and would really love to move forward on all of the issues in downtown, including the ones we are responsible for and can deal with. Any other unfinished business? Any other new business? Seeing none, bylaws.
Have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Macaulay.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Have a motion by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Macaulay, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 16th day of January, 2023.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to appoint a municipal bylaw enforcement officer, being Michael Elliott.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to appoint a municipal bylaw enforcement officer, being David Sarlos.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Seeing any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fourth and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and JC Real Estate Company Incorporated. This relates to a grant acknowledgement agreement under the Community Improvement Program for the property at 51 Malakoff Street.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Rise and report the successful passing of 4 bylaws. Great.
I have a motion by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Macaulay, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 4 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, no notices of motion or public notice this evening. There is a need to move into a closed session. Perhaps once we read the motion, we can then recess as a public meeting is scheduled for 6 p.m.
That's a great plan.
I have motion that this meeting be closed to deal with the security of the property of the municipality, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, a pending disposition of land, 3 personal matters about identifiable individuals, and a matter in respect of which a council may hold a closed meeting under another act. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Macaulay.
Questions or comments? I can share with the folks at home, we're about to hit the 6 o'clock hour where we have a public meeting planned. So we'll pass this motion that will take us into closed. When we come out of the public meeting, we'll go immediately then to the closed meeting. And when we come out of it, we will only go back into public for a short period of time in order to pass any motions that came up in the closed meeting or to adjourn for the day. So we'll see you all next week. We have a meeting next week? No, won't see you for a couple of weeks before we have our next meeting. So please watch council. We'll give you notice of when it is. So on the motion to go closed. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right, so now we'll move into the public meeting. Yeah, I've got 1 minute here, so we've got time to do it. See the timing on this? Perfect. Ready for me? I'd like to call this public meeting to order. This public meeting is required under the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known as 21 Kane Street. This proposal is to permit an affordable housing development consisting of 16 single detached dwellings, 8 semi-detached dwellings, and 4 buildings of 2 units each, and 16 townhouse units, 4 buildings with 4 units each. Before we begin, members of the public are advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the corporation of the city of St. Thomas before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the council of the corporation of the city of St. Thomas to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Further, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the corporation of the city of St. Thomas before the bylaws are passed, a person or public body may not be added to the party as a party to the hearing of appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there's reasonable cause to do so. Those wanting to be notified of the council's decision should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. For those that don't have access to a computer and wish to be notified, please call customer service at 519-631-1680 and hit extension 0 and provide that same information. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning any of the matters on this agenda? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Your worship, notice was provided in the St. Thomas Times Journal on December the 16th, 2022. And in accordance with council policies, notice was also mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property subject to tonight's public meeting.
Okay. I will now introduce the manager of planning services, Jim McComb, who will provide background information on the proposal and present the draft bylaws. Mr. McComb, are you with us here?
Yes, I am, Your Worship. Thank you very much. I'm just going
Great.
to share my screen here. Hoping everybody can see that. Okay, so the first slide you can see before you is a key map showing the location of the subject lands. Most people will know this site by its former use as the Elgin Handles site at 21 Keynes Street, located at Keynes and, well, I guess between Flora and Station Street, I guess the best way to describe it. Here's one of our aerial photographs, again, showing the subject lands outlined in red on the north side of Keynes. Adjacent to the subject lands are also the corridor owned by the city, the former Port Stanley Terminal Rail corridor. It is owned by the city and does not currently have a railway track on it, but that is the area where a track would be extended with respect to the conversation council was having earlier with regarding to connect to the CN line. There are two applications. They are concurrent together for this particular property. There's an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. Now, the official plan amendment is administrative in nature. There was a previous approval for these lands by a previous proposal that came in from the Association for Community Living. And so there's site-specific amendments to the official plan and zoning bylaw that need to be repealed. So we can essentially clean up those documents and put in new regulations for this particular proposal. So the first part of that we're dealing with tonight is the official plan amendment. The introductory statement says that all of this part of the document, entitled Part B, the amendment, constitutes amendment number 105 to the official plan of the City of St. Thomas. Under the details of the amendment under Part 2, Item 1 states that Bylaw 141-2008, being the adopting bylaw for official plan number 63, is hereby repealed. And Item 2 states that official plan amendment number 63 is hereby repealed in its entirety. The policies of the residential designation shall apply to the lands shown enclosed in heavy solid lines, identified as 105 on Schedule 1 to this amendment. So there is a Schedule 1, and we can see on the inset the lands that are identified as OPA number 105 in the heavy solid line in the inset. And the implementation and interpretation of the amendment shall be in accordance with the respective policies of the City of St. Thomas official plan. Going on with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, we have drafted an amendment in support of this particular proposal. First part, again, going back to the previous approval, states that bylaw 142-2008 is hereby repealed. Part 2 states that zoning map 11 to the bylaw is amended, is further amended by zoning the lands shown outlined in heavy solid lines on Schedule A here too as R4-60. And this schedule shall form part of the bylaw and be known as Special Zoning Map 10-10. There's a copy of that special zoning map 10-10, again, noting the subject lands in the heavy solid line with the R4-60 designation being applied. Part 3 introduces some site-specific regulations. What it does is it adds a new paragraph, 8.5.60. The area affected is the area shown as R4-60 on the special zoning map part 10-10. The only permitted uses are single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, townhouse dwellings, and accessory uses. And the accessory uses are important because under permitted buildings and structures, it's noted that the permitted buildings and structures include buildings and structures for the uses that are outlined in the previous paragraph B. It also permits a program house to provide support services to residents, and that would be considered accessory to the main use. The minimum lot area is 8,200 square meters, minimum lot frontage of 52 meters. The maximum number of dwelling units is 40 as proposed by this particular, it's like almost like a campus concept, with a minimum number of parking spaces being set at 25. This is a dedicated affordable housing project, and the city's affordable housing guideline document does state that one of the ways to encourage affordable housing is to minimize the parking requirements, because parking can be very expensive to put into place. Maximum height is 11 meters. We have some specific setbacks for this. Like I say, it's set up like a campus type environment. So the setbacks being proposed is a front yard of 3 meters on the easterly side yard, and these vary for 1 story of 5 meters and 2 story of 7 meters. They're a little bit larger than a normal side yard would be, but when you see the site plan for the site, the side yards do set up very much like a rear yard. So therefore we have to make sure that these are a little bit bigger than a standard like 1 meter side yard. The westerly side yard proposes 5 meters and the rear yard of 9 meters. I'd also like to state that that front yard of 3 meters will have buildings close to the front lot line, but this will be very much in keeping with the streetscape in this area where most houses are built very close to that front lot line. Minimum ground floor area for the units will be 32 or 39 square meters. And there are a few exceptions to the standard provisions of the bylaw. So, and those are the provisions of subsections 8.1, 8.2, and 8.4. Those shall not apply because they're being otherwise replaced by the special provisions of this zone. And as is our standard practice in anticipation of the eventual consolidation of the bylaw, we have a Schedule B to the bylaw that it shows zoning map 10 to include all the changes made to date on such map part, including this amendment. And this is a copy of that zoning map 10, and the subject lands being shown in the just off center of the map being placed into the R4-60 zone. That is the draft, Your Worship, if there are any questions.
And we'll get to you in just a second on questions. Madam Clerk, have you received any written submissions on these proposed changes?
Your Worship, we have received 1 written submission from Robert Weir advising that the property is adjacent to rail property and advising of the importance of a rail connection between the Port Stanley Terminal Rail and CN Rail property.
Great. I'll next refer to council. Do you have anyone on council who has questions? Please raise your hand. Councillor Peters, then Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. 2 points, Jim. Issues such as notwithstanding the fact there are no neighbors here tonight, I'm sure issues like fencing and lighting are going to come up in this process, and those fencing and lighting will be addressed at site plan control.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Peters, you're absolutely correct. Those are matters that you normally get addressed through the site plan process.
Okay, thank you. And I know Mr. Weir is going to speak, so I don't want to take away his thunder. But you're confident that there is adequate allowance that is being made for the relocation or relaying of the rail line, plus the potential extension of the Mackenzie Trail north?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, through you. There is room there for the tracks to be extended northerly and through the city-owned parcel adjacent to the subject lands here. Noting, I took a look at the layout of the tracks to the south earlier today and note that after they pass the replica train station, they do tend to sort of jog over to the west side of the corridor. So it looks like they were intentionally doing that to line it up with the corridor adjacent to this particular site. So there is adequate room, I believe, to get the tracks extended. The applicants did do a noise analysis in support of their application, and there are some recommendations in there to put warning clauses in any lease agreements or purchase and sale agreements for the future going forward. So they weren't able to do vibration analysis primarily because there's no track and there's no way to measure anything here. But those same warning clauses can address vibration as well. And I think there was some examples they had in the study that did include some wording for vibration as well.
And the trail can extend north as well?
That is correct.
You.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. My major question was about the trail connection and how it was going to affect that project and if it would look similar in scope and size to what Elm Street and the townhouses on Elm Street with the relationship with the tracks and the trails that are available there for the public use. My other is just a comment about the support for the public house, the programming house. It is something I believe is incredibly needed on that site and something that has been talked about. One of the things that Focus Fairview did years ago brought in that programming where it was a social environment and homework help for some of the younger people that were there and an opportunity for people to get together on that social level, and very strongly recommend that that they do that. But I do have a question on if that is also going to be available for more flex space. So if in the future that ends up having to become a house itself underneath this program, is that a possibility? Can I get just a quick comment, if I could please, from the planner?
Mr. McComb, do you have an answer for that question?
I don't directly, we don't have detailed design for that plan, but your worship, as I understand it, there is a representative from the YWCA amongst the attendees. Yep. And so perhaps I would suggest that perhaps that person might be able to answer that question. Lindsay Rice, and I believe she has her hand up.
Well, great. Lindsay, great to have you here tonight. I don't have the attendee screen.
Good evening. Am I on?
You are, and I can hear you, so you go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the question. The program house will be integral to the work that the YWCA does at 21 Kane Street. And Lori gave a few examples. No, the intent will not be to house people within the program house. It will be purely for program space, such as group-based workshops, food security, cooking classes, counseling meetings, small group meetings, and staff and resident meetings. So no, it will not be an overnight residential space.
Further question. Thank you, Lindsay. Further questions or comments from council? Seeing none. We'll now open the meeting to questions from the public or statements from the public. For those who are attending who have not already submitted their concerns or comments to the city, if you're listening on your computer or tablet or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon and we'll get you into the next queue. If you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in that sequential order. And when given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for our clerk's records. So members from the public, Mr. Weir, you're here and we'll give you a quick start then. And then we'll go to anybody on phone or on computer. So you need to go up to the podium and push the button at the bottom to turn the microphone on. Look at that. Got it figured out.
Thank you, your worship and council members. This project at 21 Kane Street, I am all for it. As a matter of fact, we need more of the affordable housing. I am considered to be the messenger. And what it is basically is the city of St. Thomas, as we know, has accepted funds from the Dorothy Palmer Estate, the province of Ontario, and the federal government. When the train reoccupies this area, there will be vibration. It's a given, but it has to be brought up right now that after the people will start complaining about vibrations from the trains. That is part of my message. And once the work order is complete, it could be completed in 6 weeks. So it's not a very long project once the work order is issued. The service was till February of 1957, of course. And one way to put yourself on the other side of the fence when dealing with Canadian National Railway and say the city will assume all municipal property taxes and maintenance. So then the CEO doesn't have to go back to his shareholders and say, this was a giveaway. That they use due diligence. The track has been laid. The area has won. And also the CNR has also gained. It's a win-win. The one consideration also is this corridor was never officially abandoned since May of 1989 when it was. And to date, zoning wise, it is still a railway corridor. If part of the 21 Kane Street, it now is part of this corridor, can it receive clear title? That's my question and what to look for.
Well, I'll try and answer it. We'll get Mr. McComb if not, but in the diagram, there's a good swath of public city-owned land that would include the railway track and the path. And then the bold outline of the housing unit is other than that.
Yes.
So it is designated.
Yes. Oh, okay. But I believe years back was part of it also sold off and transferred to 21 Kane Street. I don't have the answer. All I'm saying is just something to check.
Okay.
In due diligence. It was also brought up that the track has a little kink in it north of the replica station. The reason for that, where the track ends in the 2013 project, that was part of the original London and Perth Stanley Railway one track that crossed the Cuga at the Diamond. And then where the kink is, that was a crossover switch to the second main track, the northbound. And that's why the kink is there. But it lines up at the end of the 2013 project with the Diamond and Barwick Street.
Well, I thank you. We know your interest in the railway and the railway heritage of our community. And I think we've settled the spot where the track is. Tonight's public meeting, though, is about the rezoning of the 40 units on 21 Kane Street.
Yes.
Your worry in your letter to us was about vibrations
Correct.
being part of it. And that's been covered in the sense that all leases signed by anyone there will be pre-warned of the opportunity there will be vibrations. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does, but also I'm just stating that what to look for.
Right.
With this new venture.
Okay.
Why I am so since 1984, when I repaired the washout at Port Stanley Terminal Rail at Union, is I can see the advantage of commuter rail future, maybe 2075 when GO gets here. But It'll make this whole area viable. We only have to look at Toronto to Oxbridge with GO service and watch what's happening now from Toronto to Orangeville, that the, one of the boss, I believe it's the mayor, he's sold off part of the railway line. And there's 400 industry rail cars having to go to Guelph. So that's going to be a loss of industry and jobs.
Mr. Ware, I'd like to thank you, but this one is about the zoning of that property for housing tonight. I hope one day you and I get to do a public meeting about the railway tracks and the rehooking up of railway tracks and the uses they can be. But the reason for tonight's meeting is about the
Yeah, that's great.
housing unit. Do you have any further comments about the housing?
I know I've gone off subject, but this is the only way I can say the whole subject.
I get
Because
it.
it's all interrelated. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now refer back to those online or on computer. And if you have questions or comments for tonight, I'd also like to, now that I know Ms. Rice is there, I'd like to thank you for the great package you sent my office so I can now know kind of what else we're working on over there and how great it is. And we know it's not just the YWCA, but also Doug Terry Home and Sanctuary Homes. So I wanted to thank you for sending that over. Moving forward though, do we have anyone else online who would like to raise hands and ask questions, or *9 if you're on your phone and ask questions? And if we have no more from the public, I have a hand come up. Oh, I don't know who it is. Let me see.
Hello?
Near a man.
Yeah, Nira is what I can go by. How are you?
Okay, I'm great. You go ahead. You're up.
Yeah, I own a property in the neighborhood, and I'm just joining to get an understanding of what the project entails. I know we're in the preliminary phases of this, but you know, the one thing that is of concern to me is the development and the noise, the dust, everything like that. Do we have an idea of when this is slated to start?
Well, I'd like it, of course, we're looking for as much housing as we can find, but the project has been brought forward by 3 proponents. And it can go no further till after tonight's public meeting, changing the zoning and changing the official plan. But first, can I get your name and address?
Yeah,
For the clerk's record? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Nira, Nira, and last name Vigneswaran, Vigneswaran, and I'm the property owner of 33 Station Street.
Super. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I should have asked you that right at the beginning.
That's okay. Yeah, so the reason is it is a multiplex that I own. And so from my perspective, you know, I have to be concerned over my tenants and making sure that I'm not infringing on their rights as tenants as well. Are there any slated improvements that are under requirements for this development, for the streets, the infrastructure, anything like that?
I know that we have a future look at the piece of Kane Street out front of the project in our building plans going forward in the next couple of years. But this would be a one entrance into that property from Kane Street. And that would be really all of the improvements that we'd be doing to the triangle on Kane Street.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I see another hand up, Michelle Desjardins. If you can speak and we can hear you, we can move forward.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle. I live at the corner of Station and Rita Street at 31 Station.
Great.
And I am positively thrilled about this whole Tiny Hope project. My question, though, is I believe an environmental study was done because I watched all the construction equipment dig out 4 feet of dirt from that area. But I cannot find the report. Where might I find that?
Well, I'll ask Mr. McComb or another one of the proponents, a question on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, we do understand that there was there is environmental remediation work that is being done on the site. Being a former industrial site, there was some contamination on it. Perhaps either Lindsay Rice or I believe there's representatives from their consulting team also with the participants, and perhaps one of them could offer an answer as to the status of where their work may be.
I'm watching for hands to come up.
Martha.
Martha?
Good evening, through your worship to council. So we're a phase 1 and 2 environmental impact study were done on the property. And we're currently in the process of getting our record of site condition cleared with the Ministry of the Environment. So we should hopefully have an answer back from the ministry within the next month or so. But other than that, yes, we've done all of our required studies and we're just waiting for that clearance from the ministry.
Well, thank you for that, Martha. Michelle, is that an answer for you? And will Michelle be able to see the record of site conditions once they come back from the ministry?
Thank you. Marcia, that was very informative. But I would like to see the actual report of the final environmental study.
Okay, so as we move forward, the proponents know that you would like that, and we have your record of your name and your address, so we'll try and connect the two together to make sure that you do see that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I do have another question.
Well, I'll give you a 2-for-1 tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I always like 2 for 1. I don't know a lot of the neighbors along Station Street, but the few that I've talked to, other than the gentleman who owns the multiplex, a couple of doors over, are here tonight. And I've not heard a whole lot along Station Street about, any, cheers or concerns. What about Flora Street?
Well, we're having a public meeting so that we can get the input from as many people as we can. And we'll still take public comment after tonight's, but we have a number of people on here. Let's see who else wants to also share tonight.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I have one other hand up here, Ruth Crocker.
Hello, thank you, Your Worship. My name is Ruth Crocker. I own 53 John Street here in St. Thomas. I was just wondering if you could remind me, please, how many parking spots are slated for 21 Canes?
Mr. McComb, you shared that, and I probably have it in this detail in front of me, but I think it was about 21 or 2 for the 40 units. Am I close to right, Mr. McComb?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, it's actually 25 spaces will be provided within the site.
Okay.
I'm just concerned. That doesn't sound like very many to me. That's less than 1 spot per resident, plus any staff that's working there or any visitors. Is there an expected overflow area?
No, under affordable housing, this council's been working forward on being able to move forward with projects with less than a 1-to-1 on parking so that we can put together. This is a project with a tiny hope with very small units. And so we're assuming, and we think rightfully so, there would be less parking spots needed for the residents in this unit. Maybe Lindsay, you can share with us, Ms. Rice, I'm sorry, I'm being very familiar tonight. Ms. Rice, you can share with us, if you can, your thoughts on the parking needs.
Thank you for the question, Ruth. Yes, we did some research and analysis around the number of parking spaces that we thought would be suitable for our 40 units property. And in doing that research, we found that 25 would be sufficient, knowing that not everybody is going to be coming with us with a vehicle. Yes, we will have some staff on site. Yes, there will be visitors at time, but through the work that we did, we determined that 25 would be a suitable number for the housing that we are providing and the number of units that we are providing. So that's what I can share.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I just
You're
wanted to
welcome.
make sure that people would be covered, that's all. And I'd like to say that I'm very excited to welcome my new neighbors, and I think this is an excellent project.
Well,
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much.
Ruth. Next hand up. It just says Glunn. So please come on when you can, when you see yourself unmuted, and tell us who you are and where you live, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Angela Lunn. The G Lunn is a acronym for an email address.
Okay.
I live at 28 Station Street. My concern, I have children that used to play where you're wanting to put the tracks. They don't play out there anymore. But my concern is these tiny homes. Are they for, it sounds like it could be like a rehabilitation center for people that need rehabilitation back into society. Should I be concerned for my safety or my kids' safety, my neighbor's safety? Because to be honest, I'm really on the fence about this project. I mean, I'm happy, you know, that people that, you know, affordable housing, because, you know, we need it, but I'm not thrilled that it's going to be basically in my backyard. So I'm my main concern, you know, is safety for the people that already live on Station Street and the people that live on Forest Street, you know, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate marks for this on Facebook, but I'm not really for this project where it's going. Anywhere else, I'm sure, you know, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it, you know, but, and as crazy as that sounds, but is there any safety measures for the people that already live here?
Well, I'll refer to Ms. Rice on that also, but suggest
Okay.
that we are looking here at an affordable housing project with supports built into it for the residents.
That's what I mean, like with, I'm sorry, Your Worship, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just suggesting that is the way we can get affordable housing and get people who are not housed at the moment into a unit that would work. Ms. Rice, you do such a great job with the people in this community from a affordable housing and help point of view. Why don't you help me a little bit on this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. The YWCA has been providing supportive housing in St. Thomas since 1928. So we have quite a depth and scope of experience supporting folks with affordable housing and building that housing stabilization, that foundation, and that life stabilization as they move forward with their journey. We are going to be offering affordable housing units to individuals, whether they are a 20-year-old who is trying to get into their first career for the first time and needs an affordable place to live, for a senior who might be on a fixed income who needs an affordable place to live, for a family with children who needs an affordable place to live. There are many, many walks of life who are in need of affordable housing. And with that, also, yeah. So
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It just sounded like a rehabilitation center, you know, and I'm all for rehabilitation. I'm 100, for rehabilitation. I was just the way everything just sounded like it was going to be a rehabilitation for those that needed to, not people, I'm not saying like ex-convicts or anything like that, just people in general that needed to be reintroduced into society because they've been, mental health issues or physical illness, which, I don't have an issue with. It's just because there's a certain amount of kids on the street that they they like to play out in the field. So I was just concerned about, the safety aspect of that, but I'm all
Sure.
for low income because my rent's pretty low. Where I live, because my house is rented. But so I'm all for the low income housing. Absolutely. I was just concerned about, the safety for everybody around, not just for people that live here, but, for the people that are going to be living in the tiny homes themselves.
Oh, absolutely. We, of course, are equally wanting to ensure a safe and welcoming environment as well. And Angela, if you're interested, I'm happy to chat more with you about the project offline at another time.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great, and thank you for helping, Ms. Rice. I'm looking for other hands, and I'll ask again, is there anybody who has another comment? Please raise your hand or star 9. I'll ask in council, is there any further questions from council? Oh, well, then we'll go back to our guests and say, kind of last chance. If you'd like to have a question answered or contribute tonight, please. Can I see your hand, or can you join us? I've got a Linda. Saw a hand come up. Linda, when you're unmuted, please share with us your name and address and then your question.
Okay, my name is Linda Shaw and I'm at 20 Augusta Crescent. My question is, the comment was that the program house would not be used for residential use, and nobody would be staying in it, but would there be staff that would be staying in it overnight? In case there were, someone had an issue during the evening, would that be covered during the night hours?
Ms. Rice, on the supportive staffing part, can you help with that question?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. No, there will not be staff sleeping overnight in the program house. The staff will be working with residents based on the unique needs and interests of each of the residents within 21 Keene Street. And they will be working on a variety of different, social determinants of health, whether it's food security, employment, education, social skills, life skills. I'm going to give you an example where we see residents growing and harvesting fruits and vegetables in the gardens, in the edible trees that are going to be throughout the property, bringing in that fruits and vegetables into the program house, canning them, jarring them, creating great food to be not only enjoyed by the residents, but Horton Street Market is right around the corner. What a great entrepreneurial opportunity for residents if they so choose to have that option as well. And so we see the program house as being this really thriving place of small groups doing different things dependent on what their interests are, what skills they're working on. So you speak about an urgent issue in the night. Of course, as a respected landlord, we would ensure that we have a 24/7 phone number for folks who experience perhaps a plumbing issue or, something really, really urgent like any other landlord and tenant relationship would have. But the folks that would be living there would not be receiving counseling and crisis intervention 24/7. That is not the nature of the supportive housing. Of course, folks do have crises that arise from time to time, and our staff are going to be working with residents around developing resources and skills so that we can work on prevention. And when things come up, we want folks to have the resources that they need to get the support that they need. And so, yeah, I guess the question to answer is no, there will not be staff sleeping overnight in that program house. We do have a really unique and interesting opportunity with Community Living Elgin. As some of you may know, Community Living Elgin previously owned the property, and they of course have all sorts of housing structures. And so we're hoping that we can be accommodating at least 4 of the homes at Tiny Hope to accommodate those folks as well. And they will be having a staff on site as well to help out those folks because of their unique and individual needs and bring that expertise to the table that will even grow the robust services that the YWCA has.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. I saw Michelle Desjardins came up next. You're unmuted, please come on.
Oh, hi again.
Yes.
quick question, and this is probably going to be answered by Lindsay Rice. But are you accepting volunteers to help out with, various programs in the program house, the gardening sites, the fruit trees, etc.?
Lindsay, I know you're going to say yes, but please go ahead and do it.
Yes, we absolutely will be. The YWCA has been so fortunate over the lifespan of the YWCA to have volunteers play such a critical and important role. And yes, we see that continuing into the future as well.
Okay, that's awesome. Lindsay, get in touch with me.
Wonderful, Michelle. I have your address, but you can probably find me easier. So please call.
Okay, will do.
Great.
I have one more hand up on the board from Sue. Please, Sue, if you could, when you're unmuted, please come on and tell us who you are and where you live.
Hi, I'm Sue Bandine and I live at 38 Symphony Court. And my question is related to the program house. It's building on the last caller's question about programming. Does the program house, Lindsay, does it have a design already which would include a commercial kitchen? The reason I'm asking is I can already see opportunities for service clubs such as I belong to that already supports your programs, but we love to come in and support food programs. So will it have a commercial kitchen where groups could come in and either make or teach food skills?
Hi,
Lindsay,
Sue. Thanks. Yes,
Yep, go
sorry.
ahead.
Yes, so the kitchen is intended to be fully licensed and inspected by public health. I wouldn't necessarily use the definition as commercial, as it will not be having a fryer. So I'm not sure if that's the actual word all of a sudden, but we won't be deep frying things. But it will be a kitchen that we will be getting inspected and licensed by public health, similar to the kitchen that we have at 16 Mary Street. And yes, we would love to be connected with service groups and looking at all those opportunities for collective kitchen use and skill development.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'll ask, is there any other hands up? And I rather like this. I think this is the first public meeting where we've garnered service club support and volunteer support while we're talking about the neighborhood itself. So great job. Waiting for any other hands up. I'll ask for kind of a last call on hands and questions. Got Linda, you're back. Please go ahead.
I'm back, yes. Just another question. How will the residents be chosen for those tiny homes? Is there a protocol? Will they go through housing? Will it be just for St. Thomas residents? I'm curious to know how that will be chosen.
Great. Lindsay, in your documentation, I read some percentages and stuff, but perhaps you could share with how we will select tenants.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So this is currently still a work in progress, but the intent, knowing that the city has already a centralized wait list, is that our hope would be that we would tap into that centralized wait list instead of recreating a new wait list and working closely with the city. The YWCA already, as a housing provider with about 47 units, works really closely with the city for those applicants as well. So with this new build, we are looking at 50% of the units being dedicated to women and women-led families, those who identify as women, 25% being dedicated to youth, being ages 16 to 24, as we are highly invested in ending and responding to youth experiences of homelessness and unhousing. And then also we are looking at about 5 units dedicated to folks who identify as Indigenous. So we are being very thoughtful and intentional in how we respond to those vulnerable populations, and also knowing that that is a skill set that the YWCA brings as far as specifically working with women, women-led families, and youth and Indigenous.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Sue, I see your hand up.
Yes, I know it was mentioned earlier that this is the meeting to clear up zone amendments and those sorts of things. Did we hear a timeline or time frame of when we might see projects being built or started?
Well, I think if I can share from the chair, we'd like all of this to be done as, or pretty quickly. This is great affordable housing being done by a group that's already doing great work in our city. Council will review tonight's public meeting and then vote on the changes after report comes to us on the zoning and the official plan changes. And after that, it would then be up to the developer, in this case, the YWCA and Doug Terry Limited and Sanctuary Homes, as to how quickly they could get started.
I see. Thank you.
Lindsay, am I okay by saying what I just said?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
And I think we also would like to raise a bunch more funds for that to happen as quickly as possible too.
That is right. We are actively fundraising and we are really making a push and a big ask to our community to come forward with donations to help support this new affordable build.
Okay. I see Michelle Desjardins' hand again. Please go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, good. I got a thing on my screen. Anyway, this ties in very nicely. What is the expected total cost of this build? And how much is the city contributing, the province, the federal government, and what do we rely on for donation?
Well, Lindsay, do you want to take it first and then we'll also throw in?
Okay. The more funds we can get donated, the better. It is a big project and we are working on the finalized budget numbers, which should be available publicly in the very near future. As you can imagine, a lot has changed over the last couple of years as we've been doing this work and planning our builds as far as supply chain, labor costs, interest rates, cost of living. All of these numbers keep fluctuating. And so we're just getting down to the bottom line of our Class A estimates for our final project budget total, Michelle, but I don't have that to share with you tonight. And what I can say is right now our fundraising campaign has a goal to raise $1.5 million by February the 28th. And we are going to be seeking all levels of government funding. And so we know that it takes a cost share to build affordable housing and to ensure that it can be affordable and sustainable for years and years to come.
I hope that answered your question, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. It certainly did.
Further questions or comments? I'll ask council. Is there any questions from council? Then I will suggest that everyone's been given a fair opportunity. The public's been given a fair opportunity and council's been given an opportunity to express their views. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the bylaw for the proposed amendments should email customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. And those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified about the passing of the bylaw changes should call customer service at 519-631-1680 and hit extension 0 and provide your name and address and suggest you'd like information about 21 Kane Street's bylaw changes. This meeting is now concluded and we thank you all for being there tonight. And Lindsay Rice, I'd like to thank you for being the best assistant mayor we've had. Okay, that's that one. We're staying put. We'll be moving into closed session. So anyone who does not have the ability to be here during a closed session should leave. I will give council